All right, are we rolling? Yeah. Perfect. So, Luis, I was looking through your portfolio and I saw like you went to places that I'm pretty sure a lot of French people wouldn't even think of going. So, what's the craziest place have you been to?
What do you mean about a country or in
Yeah,
Iraq?
countries. Yeah, countries like Afghanistan.
Afghanistan is not. Afghanistan is quite a famous country in a way.
Yeah.
I think one of the toughest place I visited was most probably Somalia
Yeah.
for a project that I did in 2019.
Okay.
But my work always drive me to war-torn countries or countries that we have difficulties to apprehend.
So, before we get into your work, do you mind like introducing yourself and your work
No, for sure.
before? Yeah.
So I'm a contemporary artist. I was born in Paris, and I'm a self-taught person. Um, what I'm doing basically is trying to have a different point of view on territories that I've been reading a narrative about. So, for example, I always heard about Iraq in school as a child as Mesopotamia, which is a land that created most of the civilization. But at the same time, my first memories of a television is about the Gulf War in 1991. And so I was always interested by the narratives that is given in medias and
Yeah.
how we talk about countries.
What was the narrative about Iraq,
Well,
specifically in the West?
I believe that when you want something from other people, so when you want oil or when you want road for energies, because you always have to think geopolitics not about resources, but how you bring them somewhere to a point, to another point. And that's one of the main reasons for most of the contemporary wars. They're not directly linked to energies, but also about the oleoduc or about the transfer, like how you make safe routes for these materials.
Yeah.
So I believe that in some way there is some kind of dehumanization of people. You even in their numbers, some dramas that happen in Iraq by their numbers are so incredible for us. I can think about the Spiker massacre in Tikrit that we never hear about, but which is more, if I remember, 1,700 people who died on that day, or about the Karada bombing, which killed 350 people from both the bombing and the fires.
Yeah, it was atrocious.
So the numbers are so vast, and the situation shown, even the video, is always something of a confusion of violence. So we have this vision still today, in my opinion. When I say that I'm in Iraq, a lot of people still project that Iraq is right now a war-torn country. I wouldn't say it's perfectly peaceful. I mean, there is still problems, but the situation is changing extremely quickly. And day after day. So to finish about this vision, I was always interested by these territories. And I'm also interested in territories that people do not like to go. So I also work in radioactive zones, for example, in Kazakhstan or in Chernobyl.
I saw that. That's crazy.
Yeah, and my idea is that there is things going on in some territories, and we need to reconnect in some way. So my films and my video works are sometimes like documentaries, but without any presentation, without any words. The landscape speaks in itself.
Beautiful.
So I'm trying to be a bridge since many years, and it's also not very easy.
Is that the reason that you came here?
The first time I came to Iraq was in 2010. I was traveling by motorbike, and I'm an expert in unrecognized country. So my travel by motorbike was going to Transnistria, which is an unrecognized part under Russian influence in Moldova. Then I was going to North Cyprus.
All that by a motorcycle?
Yeah.
From Paris?
Yeah.
Wow.
Then I've been to North Cyprus, which is an unrecognized country since 1974, since the Attila operation made by Turkey with Cyprus and Greece. And I was going to Armenia, Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, which is a country that does not exist anymore because Azerbaijan has been committing quite some massacre and took that
When
land.
was that?
In 3 years ago, in 2021, during COVID.
Oh, wow.
They used massive Turkish drones and killed a lot of young men, and they just took back this land.
That's really crazy.
So I visited a country that does not exist anymore, which was called
That's-
Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh Republic.
How did that bring you to Iraq?
So I came in Iraq by motorbike first to Erbil, and it was my 30th birthday. And I didn't have cash on me. And so at the border, I was at Ibrahim Khalil border. And I thought that I would be able to get some cash to pay for my visa. I thought that there would be an ATM because the American invaded the country in 2003. I knew about the special zone of Kurdistan. So I thought there would be an ATM. And so the Kurds, the Peshmerga, gave me the visa and stamped my passport. And then they asked me $25 at that time for the visa of my motorbike. Now it's much more expensive. And I tried to pay with a Visa card and they laughed and they just told me go back to Turkey because we don't have any visa. And
Did you?
You need cash. You need cash. So just come back tomorrow. And I told them, like, listen, I don't have any more benzene because benzene is very expensive in Turkey. So, you know, I planned to arrive and to refuel in Iraq, which
Yeah.
I knew it would be cheaper.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's my birthday today. I'm 30 years old. I'm alone. And they just check my Jawaz, my passport, and they say, wow, it's your birthday today.
Yeah.
And you arrive from France with your motorbike alone. Wait.
Oh,
And so
they felt
all,
bad?
They all gave money
Oh.
for my visa.
That's nice.
And they gave me $35, $5 for food, $5 for benzene, and
That's
25.
nice.
Yeah.
That's
and so
really
they
nice.
re-stamped my passport. So I had a very good opinion on
Yeah,
my
first
very
impression
yeah.
in Iraq.
I mean, yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
It was
well,
my birthday. But
They celebrated your
yeah,
30th
they
birthday.
celebrated, and I have a photo of this day. I have
That's
on my
beautiful.
Facebook profile. I have a photo of this 30 years old birthday with a Peshmerga.
What?
It was really funny picture.
On the headline, it looks like the craziest story ever.
It's not a crazy story. It's just one of many small stories. But then
Yeah.
from that day, I began to read every day about Iraq. And I decided to come back in 2015 during the war. I was following a lot of social medias at that time and Twitter particularly. So I've been looking closely at the expansion of Daesh. And I decided to come back, and I stayed for 4 months in Suleimania, mainly in Erbil, Suleimania, but also Halabja, Duhok. I visited the whole Kurdistan, and I created a video work in Kirkuk, which was occupied at the time by Kurds.
Yeah.
So I could go to an oil field named Baba Gourgour, which is a fire that they talk about in the book of Daniel.
What happened there? What was it about?
This fire was very interesting to me because it's an emanation of benzene, of oil. So this fire is a fire that they talk about since thousands of years. So in the book of Daniel, which is the story of the Jewish under Babylonian rule, they speak about that fire, and this fire is a punition for 3 children that do not respect the idol of the king.
Okay.
And by making a film of that fire, in the book of Daniel, this fire is a punishment for idolatry.
What is that?
Idolatry is when you have an idol, it's to venerate something which is not directly linked to God. Like idolatry is something like Daesh is destroying every statue and physical representations because they believe this is idolatry. Idolatry is when you have an idol.
Yeah.
So this fire was a punishment. But today it was burning, and in itself, because of contemporary predations, it became actually the meaning, the target of the idolatry. Because through this fire, there was oil, and oil is money. And oil is what's also fueling the different conflicts, particularly in Iraq. So I did this short video in 2015. And then in 2021, 2 weeks after the opening of visa, I decided to come.
To Baghdad, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was one of the first tourists. but I never really left. So
Sorry, in what year was that?
2021.
21, okay.
I mean, at that time, it was very difficult also for me because we had this COVID restriction in Europe. And for many personal reasons, I never believe what my government tells me. This is my experience as a man. So when people tell me that I have to get the vaccination, I'm the kind of guy who says, let me try without, it's just...
Did you take the vaccination?
No.
I'm glad you didn't, because I didn't too.
Yeah. Just like, I mean, it was a test. I mean, I'm sorry for all the people that felt compelled to, that have families. I didn't see my family for 2 years because my parents are not old, but my parents are fragile. So by respect for them, I didn't see them for 1.5 years.
Wow.
But in Paris...
But I guess it was easier to not take it in Iraq because there was no systemic...
Yes, that's where I'm going. But because in France, you would have to make stupid things like authorization of going out.
Just because you're not vaccinated?
It was even stronger. Like, I was not allowed to go in coffees. I was not allowed to go and drink a beer. I was not allowed to take a train. I was not allowed. So, and there was a system that you need to download an app and that you need to show QR codes.
Okay.
And this kind of thing I did not accept. So I got harassed by French police.
Wow.
For this reason. So I decided to come to Iraq in 2021 as a refugee.
Wow.
You're not the only
a
one.
French person as a refugee in Iraq. That's
a joke, but it's a way of turning things in another way. Like, sometime when you have a political oppression and when things do not make a sense anymore, when your country is becoming a dictator and when people accept it and you're like, okay, Iraq just opened visa. I know these guys. It's not going to be a problem for me to be vaccinated, not vaccinated, and I can probably solve anything.
By knowing people and talking to people and talking your way out of it.
Unfortunately, not only you can solve things in Iraq in many different ways. That's a problem of the country.
So you like the Iraqi way of doing things, right?
I mean, I don't like it for Iraqi, but for foreigners, it's really nice. I mean, I don't know. I don't say life is easy for Iraqi, but I would say it's stupid to believe that life is easy for French people. We are selling an idea that things are easier for us. It's not at all. It's just very different.
It's not just French people. We have this idea about Westerners in general.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to confront to bureaucratic nightmares, to norms, but when we have a fire, we don't have like 100 people who die. I remember for a very painful thing that happened in Mosul in Nowruz in 2019. I know very well Iraq, so I'm very connected to its drama, and always the numbers are crazy. So for Nowruz in 2019, there was a boat going to this we call it parc d'attraction in French. It's like a place for children to play and that they can, they can buy tickets and just do so many. It's like a fun fair.
Yeah, it's a fun fair, yeah.
Yeah, and so the boat, which was supposed to be 50 people, took 200 people, and the boat has been sinking, and 200 people died. And
they were kids, right?
Yeah, kids.
Wow,
and
that's crazy.
Kids and their mother mainly. Yeah. That was in Nowruz in Mosul, and always the numbers are crazy because
there is no safety measures.
There is not much safety measures applied. It comes slowly. Yeah. It was very funny for me to see people putting their seatbelt for 3 months in Baghdad, but now they are back to normal and not doing it.
Just because the restriction was there, it's just like they don't do it.
There was some Chinese cameras filming and giving you tips, and I think the cameras got broken by the heat and by the general dust in the city. It's not working anymore. So that's what I'm thinking. But it's funny, so there is not much security. People drive 160 and 170 in a Charger and
it's
Obama.
Very different. Very different from what you would see in Europe, right?
Yeah, but there is something which is very enjoyable in the freedom. After you have different kind of problems, but your problems in Iraq. I mean, if you need to pay someone for your security, it will still be cheaper than to pay the tax in Europe. I mean, the tax in
Wow,
my country.
yeah. You're
So
basically selling Iraq
no, but the
lifestyle right
tax in
now.
my country is like
Yeah.
60% when you are a
Yeah, but
successful
that's also you
businessman.
have public transportation. We barely have that here.
Yeah, but if you really want to make it, things are cheap in Iraq. You know, like our benzene is more than $2 for 1 liter.
True.
I mean,
It's just cheaper, right?
everything is quite possible if you really want to do it, and if you want to meet, and if you want to learn. There's plenty of things. It's a land of opportunity.
I had someone on the podcast before, and he told me it's a modern day gold mine.
I'm not a businessman, but it's easy to understand what Iraqi wants. Sometimes Iraqi wants products that are real. They're fed up of fake, like the upper class. They want to be considered. They want to be treated well. It's still not easy for everyone to travel abroad because there is still huge restrictions on the Iraqi passport.
Yeah.
So you still have to prove you have $10,000 on the bank account. You will be given visas if you're married, if you have children, but if you're just alone, it's very difficult. So I wouldn't say that. I don't say that life is easy. Life is not easy, but I know plenty of successful people, and Iraqi are very curious. If you want to open a new restaurant, people love restaurants here.
They love it, right?
And they spend a lot of money on things that they like. I mean, people are generous here. So
Yeah.
they will invest a lot on some different things. I would recommend to people to come and make business in Iraq and to offer really good products. And
I think people really care about looks here and how they appear
Yeah.
socially.
Yeah.
That's really connected to the tribal kind of thinking. Like
Mhm.
in tribes, it's all about your reputation and who you are. So it kind of translated into the modern world by wearing or, going to outrageous places.
Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting. So I saw in one of your interviews in Sharqiya channel, right?
Mhm.
You were on the front lines, something in Mosul
Yeah.
with Peshmerga. What was that?
I decided to visit the Christian village. I'm myself Christian, but I don't put the life of Christian higher than any other lives. I think that's the way of being a Christian. But yes, the film that I did almost 10 years ago now, exactly 10 years ago, this film was made in Kirkuk, and it was 7 kilometers from the line of Daesh at that time.
Whoa!
So
How did you feel?
So it was really dangerous for a white person at that time, because the snipers and the people who would just cut the road between Kirkuk and Suleimania, which
Wow.
happened. You would have fake checkpoint on that road, and they would kidnap people. So that makes you a target. But from Duhok, I've been in the village of Teleskov and Bakofa, which are Christian village. And I've been going there by hiding in a car of very, very simple Yazidi soldier. And I told them that I had an appointment with an officer on the front line, which was not true.
Oh my
And I
God.
passed 3 checkpoints, and I got myself into this village, which is named Bakofa, and which was totally deserted. And I just began to take photos. And at that point, that was 1 kilometer from the front line of Mosul. So I was as close as Mosul as I could be.
Did you see
There
Daesh?
was smokes of different bombings and fighting at the horizon. So on my photos on my blog, you can see that. It was 10 years ago, and it was just not so dangerous. But I got then the Peshmerga noticed me, and they came and they
happened?
brought me back. They brought me back in a safer place, and they tried to understand who I was, because they did not know if I would be someone trying to join Daesh, what I was doing. But they were
What did you tell them?
Well, I had already spent many months in Kurdistan, so I had this card that allows you to stay in Kurdistan. And I had a blog, I had social media, and they understood that I was just an idiot. But I'm not a journalist, so I don't have a press card. I don't have the authorization to do most of the things that I'm doing.
That makes them more crazy.
It's difficult. Like some things that I want to do are very difficult because also I'm not a journalist and people don't understand what a contemporary artist wants to do into certain zones. They really don't get it.
Especially in a place like Iraq, like when people are barely thinking about their daily maneuvers and what they do or what they eat and where they eat, how can they understand contemporary art more?
They don't. Most of the people believe an artist is a painter anyway and someone not useful for the society. And
so what makes you have the resilience to stay here even though your work is not understood by majority?
But I'm not exhibiting here.
Oh, okay.
I never, 1 year ago, I showed some of my video works in Abu Nawas, in the French Institute, in Institut Français. And the reaction of people was extremely bad.
What was the work?
Yeah. They hated my work and they spoke about it openly, saying that my work was shit.
What was it? Like, what did you do?
I showed them my work at uni. I showed them a work which I did in Boursipa with AI, speaking about Babel and about the fact that building the Tower of Babel is the same thing as transhumanism and AI. And that humanity is always building some crazy towers that we want to be the equal of God, and it always fails. But they didn't get any kind of concept. They got very bored. It was, you have to take the shock, but they really didn't like my work, and that's okay with me. But the reactions were really bad. Like, they openly took the mic and said that they hated it. They thought that they came to see documentaries.
Oh my God.
Because there is, it's not because I love Iraqi, I always say that I love Iraq like I would love a woman. But sometimes you're like, you love people, but
they don't love you back.
You think they're not. First they don't love you back, and also sometimes it's not because you love someone that you approve what he does all the time. For example, I think the attention span of Iraqi is extremely small and even smaller than any European that I know. So, I mean, for sure, if you just train your brain on TikTok and just if you brain rot yourself into social media like Iraqi do, for sure, to look at the most contemplative drone shot, which is 12 minutes of the same thing, which I offer you this for you to just delve into contemplation and to try to, in that contemplation, to try to give you a spiritual space. It doesn't work in Iraq. But the most brilliant people that I know have very short attention span in Iraq, like because they train their brain on social media. So, for example, one of my favorite cineasts is a Russian cineast. His name is Andrei Tarkovsky. Most of these films are 3 hours 30s, 3 hours, and they are extremely contemplative and spiritual. They are prayers. I think that people cannot tolerate. Even for me, it's difficult to connect to Tarkovsky. And, I wouldn't look at it late at night. I looked at some of his films 10 times, and, it's a different vision that you have on the film every time you see it. But if you cannot accept silence, if you cannot accept solitude, if you cannot accept to connect to an art piece, it cannot work. I was not stunned, the reaction was very bad. I don't care, I'm just trying to give a very good vision through social media about Iraq, taking good photos. I spend my life to make little series, from the good coffees of Yarmouk to Souk Mridi. I've been visiting everywhere in this country.
Yeah.
I'm trying to show that every community, everything deserves to be loved.
Yeah.
But the work that I'm producing here, they're really not for an Iraqi audience. They don't accept it. Honestly, they don't accept it.
It's very, very true. Like what you said about the attention span is very, very true and very dangerous for Iraqis. I don't think they understand the like when you say they criticized it, they didn't even just like look at it and just get bored. They actually criticized it. It really shows like how Iraqis think.
I understand that it's a bit difficult,
to do that.
For example, a lot of things in the country make me amazed. Like this country has huge electrical problems. don't ask me to go into details. This
Oh,
is
well.
none of my business, and I'm a guest here, so that's your country, and I don't know why. Let's say that I don't know why. But what I see is like when the airport is reopening a visa counter, or when a new restaurant's open in Canada, they just put one light bulb every 10 centimeters, which is like there is a level of light which is so high that my eyes suffer in Iraq. My eyes suffer. And then suddenly the electricity cut, and you're like, okay, so that's much better. And then it comes back again, and you're like,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
then by talking with people, I was like, what is your problem with light? What is your problem with light? I mean, you already have a lot of light from the sun, from the reflection of the sun into
I don't think
concrete.
they understand that. It's just like, it's really ugly how they use lights.
Yeah, but the old generation and the older people of my age, they all told me, Louis, we were suffering in the 90s. We did not have light. We just had one bubble per house. We spent our lives into places that were barely lit. We couldn't see, we couldn't read, and we had nothing. And so
Wow.
today that we can just build something, and okay, we have electricity, and okay, we're like children, like I
Yeah,
see
it just
that with
comes
a
from-
deep emotion. It's
Yeah.
sad actually that this
Wow.
use of light is someone that you've been deprived of things for many people who've been living the economic sanctions of the 90s.
It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, I
People
know.
have been suffering a lot. Like, I hear a lot of stories that people would get married, and if they would get a cake, they would hide to eat the cake, because how did you get a cake?
Yeah, yeah.
How did you get a cake for your wedding? That's
Yeah, I know. So it really comes from deprivation. It really reflects.
So I'm not here to judge or to think, sometimes people don't understand my project. It's sad, but they don't understand my project because there is a lack of education. And so, for example, in some project, like people just mind business that they shouldn't. But other, sometime I had really good surprise, Sometime I was arrested in a checkpoint in Tikrit years ago.
Why?
And I did not understand why. And so I had to wait for 10 or 15 minutes, and a very handsome gentleman with a very nice mustache, a white shirt, a black tie, a beige suit. He arrived and he knocked on the Dodge Charger that we were sharing with a friend. And he was, so you're Louis, huh? I'm saying, yes. He was like, yeah, I knew you would be in Tikrit today, and I asked the checkpoint to stop you. I'm Mukhabarat of Iraq, and I want to thank you very deeply for what you did, for the stories you did in Karbala.
Wow, that's so nice.
You've been showing. I was super afraid of why do they want to talk to me? What did I do?
Yeah.
No, I was just arrested by people who were thanking me for showing how organized and beautiful and generous the people can be during Arbaïn, because I was in 2021 during Arbaïn in the middle of COVID, and there was no Christian, not much foreigners on that year. So for sure, people would just look at me with more, attention.
That's very beautiful.
And, like right now, after this interview, I'm going to leave again. There is not one Iraq. Also, there is one Iraq as a country, but every city has its own personality. So I'm going to leave again, like for Karbala, like in an hour, because my guest from France, she wants to see Karbala, and just, and she's Christian like me.
Yeah.
But she's very interested to see also that part of the country that is existing. So, me, I feel very good in every place.
Well, what's most interesting about Karbala for you?
I mean, that's a very unique. The most interesting thing is that the city is built around the grave.
Yeah.
I mean, this city was not existing. It's just a place of a battle that became a city, and this city is like, I think it's less than 1 million inhabitants. It's a bit more, maybe 1 million inhabitants today, and suddenly it can accept for a few days 24 million inhabitants, and everyone will get fed, and everyone will sleep, and everyone will have electricity. That's a very, very, like, when you say, for example, that Iraq is not organized, Iraqi prove to the world that it can be very organized
without a government.
if they want to. If they want to be organized,
they can be very, very organized.
Yes, it's stunning. I mean, it's very stunning.
Yeah, it is really stunning. Yeah, so my next question would be, you've worked a lot with art, and in your portfolio you mentioned that you focus on places that have been destructed, and you kind of experiment how identities are being changed, you know?
Well,
So,
yeah, there is this word that I use for in my portfolio to speak about my work is that I see landscape as a palimpsest. A palimpsest is a book. When we were creating books in the early time of creating books, they would be all handmade, and sometimes people would just erase and scorch, the paper to rewrite again on the same page.
yeah.
So today, with some very high technology, we can also see what was written before.
Oh, cool.
A palimpsest is a book that has many layers of writing on the same pages, and I see landscape as that. So you have different layers of history, and particularly in Iraq, you have many layers of history.
Many layers.
So what interests me is a lot about identity. For example, one of my favorite projects that has been realized and finished and exhibited is called Oyuni, which is my eyes. It speaks about the identity of contemporary Iraqi. And so last week I posted on my Instagram, I posted some objects of the Baghdad museum. And someone commented that she was so proud that the blood of her ancestors that built this, which is Assyrian, were flowing into her vein. I did not reply to that comment, but Oyuni is speaking about the new generation of Iraqi who write in their biography that they are Mesopotamian or Sumerian, or they write their name in cuneiforms, or the Tishrin painters that used a lot of this iconography and also of these alphabets.
Okay.
And so I truly love the fact that contemporary new generation of Iraqi are making a revendication of a Mesopotamian identity.
Beautiful. So I saw it was like they had this black glasses.
No, it's eyes. It's 3D printed huge eyes that they cannot see through, by the way. But there is a Sumerian statue in the Museum of Baghdad. So maybe you will be able to.
Yeah, actually, you can show it in the here. But what did this eyes represent?
Well, those eyes are eyes of Sumerian statues, and they are eyes of devotion, and they are in the Museum of Baghdad.
Devotion.
And devotion is to look at something with religiosity. Yeah, but so you have to go to the statue in itself, because there is like very small statue
below
which is in the museum, which is in the Museum of Baghdad.
Yeah.
Even up, but yes, you can use this is a statue which is in the Sumerian collection of the Baghdad Museum, which is never open. For 2 years I tried to see them, but it's not open yet.
So
no, it's the Sumerian gallery is not open.
Why?
And I don't know. I met the director briefly and asked her, and she just told me to that. Yeah, she told me
it's not open.
Yeah.
For no reason.
Yeah,
so
no, it's not for no reason. They're rebuilding it. But,
okay.
But they're rebuilding the Sumerian area, but it's complicated. I mean, it's 2 years.
So the eyes, like what is like, why are you so sure that it was about devotion?
Because I know, because I studied a lot about these Sumerian devotion statues, and they look at God. And they look at God, and when you look at something that you really love, you have something which is called mitridas, and you have like this opening of the pupils.
Yeah,
but the pupils also can get open for many other reasons. For example, these large eyes, they also are part of the manga vision of the world. They are part of the techno culture for some other reasons. So these black eyes were for me a way, by creating 3D printed eyes, and by asking friends from different religion and different tribes to come with me and to search on their own.
How did you get them to wear it?
I mean, they're my friends. Like, I have a lot of friends in Iraq, and they played music for me, and we did this video work. And because in some museum like the Louvre, sometimes the statue has disappeared, but you just have the eyes. So I also recreated this kind of I recreated that kind of scenario where only the eyes are left. from a
Okay.
statue. But so, by having these people in Al-Shibaish, you have this house that are called Mudif.
Mudif, yeah.
Yeah, the Mudif is a traditional Sumerian way of building, and we have Sumerian stamps that show the same architecture.
Oh.
This is also in the museum in Baghdad and also in the British Museum.
The same architecture as what exactly?
At the Mudif.
Oh.
The Mudif is a Sumerian way of building.
Nice.
These buildings they are always renewed on the same architecture since 3,500 years ago, 4,000 years ago.
So you're saying it's the same way of building the Mudif itself? Okay, nice.
You have it it's very easy to find if you put Mudif Sumeria in Google, and if you search, you will find stamps that shows the exact same house.
Beautiful.
And also to go to Ur, to the ziggurat, which was heavily rebuilt and which looks more like brutalist architecture today than a ziggurat. But it's very interesting so the Oyuni project is a travel with youth of Iraq to search about this identity. And why did I create that project? I created that project because it allows people to not fight each other in a very stupid way and kill each other for no reasons, and just to feel that Iraq is one, Iraq Wahed, and that whatever your faith, your sect, whatever, you can be Turkmani, Kurdish, or Arab, or Assyrian, who are the real inheritance of this country.
Yeah.
Because the fun part of it, and this is a discussion that I had also with a wonderful journalist of Al-Sharqiyya, which I had discussion about. She was very curious, but I'm pretending that most of the Arabs today in Iraq come from Yemen, and that the Kurds come from the north of Iran and from this, Central Asia place. So to see people fighting on a land to know if Kirkuk is more Kurdish or more Arab, Kirkuk is none of that. I mean,
it's really none of
those
that.
are movement of population and genocides. And there was a genocide of Assyrian 1 century ago, exactly in the 20s in Iraq. And the original people who built these structures have disappeared. So maybe there is a bit of blood and mixing. Yes, there is but it's not directly genetically the ancestors of Iraqi who were Sumerians. I do not believe that.
It's kind of like America. People just come here and settle.
But that's okay. But that's very funny because people get upset when I say that, which is okay. Me, I'm a very honest friend. I just pretend that there is mostly, like, even in the behavior and in the tribe, which is a very different social system as the Hammurabi Codex. It's very different, and that's life. If you look at contemporary Turkey, contemporary Turks are not the original inhabitant who built the archaeological site of contemporary Turkey. And if you cannot say that, it's a problem.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with that. Like Iraq.
Yeah, but they got a bit upset. And so for me,
it's an ego thing.
Yeah, but Oyuni, because they feel pride into this Mesopotamian heritage. But for me, so Oyuni is also a way, and I'm very honest, and I will always be honest, to invoke imaginary grandfather to solve post-Civil War conflicts.
Beautiful.
And to say we are all brothers and sisters in Iraq, and we all deserve. And as you see, I don't know if you saw that video, but there is dance, and there is no real presence of religion or identity. There is people from very different background that came to me in that project. And for me, it's a way of saying that if you dream to be something and that it can make you at peace, then the dream, the reality is what we make about it.
Beautiful message. I love that message. It tells a lot. I mean, I could go. I have one last question about Oyuni. So the relation between the Sumerian status and the people who were wearing it was the connection, the bridging between Mesopotamia and like the modern Iraqis youth that want to re-identify themselves. And is there a particular reason that you chose the glasses, the big eyes?
You never know why you have an idea. I believe, is in the air, and artists are like fishermen.
Wow.
And so, there is a way that we would call it zeitgeist. It's a good moment to make it.
Yeah, a lot of creative people document that their ideas come from a celestial
Yeah, I mean,
planet
it's
or
something
somewhere.
that is given. It's something that is given to you, and you think that suddenly it's very important, and you have to convince Iraqis, and you have to find someone who know how to design this glass in 3D, and you have to pay for a bus, and everyone needs to be on time, and we're going to go to Al Shibaish, and we're going to dance in Modif, and the local community are going to be like,
Yeah.
what the hell? The woman doesn't have a job, and what are you doing in the Modif? So they don't want you to be in a Modif, actually. So we did it in some kind of museum because
Oh.
it felt I was supposed to do the film in a Modif, but they felt it was offensive for the community.
Yeah.
We find solutions, but like at some moment they cook a fish. Like there was a lot of images. It was 46 degrees when we did the work, and I did not have money. Like everyone did it by themselves.
Yeah.
I'm actually an artist, so it's always not professional actors.
Yeah.
It's people who wanted to be part of that project and who wanted to help me.
Beautiful.
And I'm very thankful to all of them. But so, all in all, it's very difficult to organize this kind of project. We have drone shots.
So drone
the
is
drone
like
shots is
restricted.
extremely difficult in Iraq, and particularly in Ur, because Ur is maybe 2 or 3 kilometers from the highest security prison in Iraq.
Oh yeah.
So they don't really like you to fly drones around the highest security prison.
Yeah.
It's not in Syria. So you get, you need wasta. You need to have people who will
Wasta.
say, okay, I understand what you're doing, crazy man, and you can maybe fly a drone there. It's okay.
Yeah. So there's always a way around Iraq. All right.
There is
So
always a way around, but a lot of projects that I want to do are actually not
Not
feasible and not done yet. It's very difficult. Everything is, it's possible, but it takes time.
would it be easier in Paris?
I mean, in Paris, everything, either you're allowed to do something, and we're not allowed. We have like very specific maps of where you're allowed to fly drones or not drones. But if you have a proper production company and the money, like, the problem is also that I do things by myself. I have my own assistant and DOP, director of photography, who's named Ali, which I adore, and who's been working with me for all my projects in
That's
Iraq.
nice. That's really
So
nice.
he's really helpful. But, everything would be different if I go to a specialized production company in Iraq and giving them $10,000 and telling them that I want to do that. And then
They would make it more difficult, right?
no, they would probably ask for the reauthorization. Like everything is
Oh,
possible. What's
yeah.
difficult is when you have the budget of an art piece. The
When
budget
you
of an art
do
piece
it.
is not the same as a documentary. It's not the same as everything is possible. But then you need to also pay fixers. Me, I'm not a journalist. A journalist will pay some fixers. It is their job. I know a lot of fixers. Most of them are based in Kurdistan, by the way. But
What is a fixer?
a fixer is someone that you arrive in a country, you're a journalist, and you have a subject. Journalists who come to work in Iraq, most of the time, they just want to do their subject in 1 week or 5 days.
Okay.
So they come and they want to make a subject on the Iranian woman refugee in Kurdistan because of problems in Iran. So they will call that guy that knows everything about everyone. And they will say, I'm going to arrive at that moment. And the guy knows the driver, he knows the people at the checkpoint. He will ask the question in the community.
So more like a mediator.
Fixer is someone who will... I mean, if you have money for a good fixer, you just can go on the front line of the Battle of Mosul. And if you're courageous enough, you're going to make the photo of your life. But if you don't have the fixer, it's not going to work.
But you didn't have the fixer and you made it to the front line.
Yeah, but not in the middle of an active battle. Like, I was not shot at, It's very interesting, front lines. Front lines, people, they fight in the morning. And then they stop fighting at 5. And at 5, you see suddenly trucks of oil going out.
Wow.
And, there is business involved in war.
There is.
You can see things that you would never expect. I saw things that I would never expect about, You know, like people imagine a war zone that it's these people against these people at any prime. No, some people they have some things. These other people on the other part they need it, and
That's
there is a time for fighting and there
incredible.
is a time for business, for example.
Wow, that's the notion I would never think of.
Yeah, me
Did
neither. I saw it.
did that inspire you to make the doors of Mosul?
What inspired me into making the doors of Mosul is to actually help to clean the name of the city, which is a very beautiful city and which I saw and visited for 4 years now.
All right. So what's the message of the doors?
The message of the
Firstly.
doors, they are ambassador of a city and they are there to show the world and show people that will not come to Mosul for many years. Because, we know that also in Iraq, reputation is everything. And the reputation of the city is awful.
Yeah.
And when I even say to people who love me in France that I'm in Mosul, like suddenly they're going to speak like that. How you say it? Like I'm safer than in Paris, like 100% safe. The center of the city of Mosul was, there was different community, Jewish, Christian and Muslim, and they would build very beautiful doors for their house. Some of them would be done like in a factory, so you find some models of doors that are the same. There is one that I like which has 2 lions on them and that you can see often, but some other would get on measure engraved doors.
Okay.
So most of the people, the Jewish would make it much more hidden, but you have some Hebrew sometime in some house, so I've been documenting that a lot. The Christian would make it super baroque and extremely sophisticated, and the Muslim would do it in a very geometrical patterns. But each of the doors, for the people who know Mosul and who knows what I'm talking about, they can tell you the religion and the
From the door.
status of the family from the door. Like in a minute, I can tell you that.
Wow.
Like when I'm walking in the ruins of Mosul, I'm like, oh, this is from a very small part of stone. I can tell you that it was part of a Jewish house because they use a diamond shape that they don't use in other religion. Like, yeah.
Nice.
So they are very different and they bear an identity.
Very nice.
So as you know, Jewish left Iraq mainly in the 60s for many different reasons. And it's a very interesting subject to know why they left. There is 2 theories, and as I said, I was speaking about Bedouin because Bedouin is full of old Jewish, abandoned Jewish house. So for the people who are interested, they should really see because there is 2 theories. Like everything in Iraq, you always have 2 theories. One of the official Jewish theories that Iraqis rejected and got violent with Jewish people.
Yeah.
But if you search, you will find some very good documentaries saying that it's actually Mossad who organized violence and bombing against the Jew because they
Who
wanted
is it? Sorry?
the Mossad, the Israeli secret service, that actually organized violence in Iraq against Jews because they wanted Israel to be more populated.
So they wanted more Jews to take them back.
Yeah. But this house, like, it's very interesting because a lot of these houses, they are not occupied by people. They're not taken. If you go to Bedouin, you have plenty of these houses that look in ruin now, but no one never forced the entry and came and lived there. They're still there for a lot of them.
Interesting.
But that's why at night, when you walk in Bedouin, there is literally no one. No? Like a lot of these houses are abandoned, but they're still there, and there is still a synagogue, and the synagogue is very clean, and no one destroyed it. You have the synagogue, the Martweg synagogue in Bedouin.
Yeah, you have you entered it?
No, but I know where it is, and I know from the wall.
But let's get back to doors of
so the doors of Mosul. Like,
how was it built? You said it was
the doors of Mosul is
material.
It's alabaster. So alabaster is what we call the bastard of the marble. So the marble is the most beautiful stone, but this is the lowest quality of the most beautiful stone. And so for centuries, I speak thousands of years in that area, some sculptures have been built with that material, which is found around Mosul. It's called alabaster, or it's in Arabic it's called farsh.
Farash. I don't think I've heard of that material. Farash.
Farash. I think it's a Moslawi term.
Yeah.
So people would build the doors, people would build windows, people would build a lot of details, architectural details. This material is quite fragile, actually. So I love it as it is, but a lot of these doors also were painted. You have also to understand that the people who built this house, they were very powerful families. And because of the different conflicts that have been in Iraq, lots of people left their house.
Okay.
And some people from the countryside of Mosul came into Mosul and lived into this house. So
they found free.
I mean, there is like, maybe I'm saying mistakes, like sometimes people make mistakes, but I heard that people from Mosul call themselves Moslawi, and they call people who are from outside the city Arabs, and they don't consider themselves so much as Arabs. And there is like, the people from outside of Mosul say the people of Mosul are stingy, and the people from the very big families of Mosul say that the people from outside are uneducated and dirty.
Wow, so it's like really a lot of conflict.
I think there is a conflict. I think there used to be a conflict between very powerful families who build houses which are little palaces and that were all destroyed. Okay. And these places would have wonderful carved doors, and you would have powerful Muslim, powerful Jewish, and powerful Christian families. So before, in this old Mosul, you could just see these giant doors of entrance because it was a kind of competition, an identity competition. And even inside the house, there is a lot of these carved details. It's a very highly decorated house.
Interesting.
This you can also see it in the Kalat in Kirkuk. You have this kind of engraving too in Kirkuk.
So when we were on the phone, you told me something about like some things on the rocks that you can tell that Jewish people were here, or you can read. Like what are those things?
Some designs that are traditionally used. Are not the same. There is patterns that are used only by Jews. There is patterns that are used only by Christians. So you can very quickly memorize them and you understand. So for example, when it's much more modest engraving, and it's often Jewish. When it's like I think most of the engravers, the people who would be engraving, I was talking with many people they were Kurdish mainly, working for everyone, or Christian engravers. So some other families would just order to other communities.
Oh.
It's not these doors would be built, but I was talking with some very important person to Mosul. I did iftar with him like a week ago, and it was a great honor to be invited in his house. And by asking questions, he told me that he never saw a Jew in Mosul, and that his father probably never saw a Jew, and that like all of these houses are remnants of from 1850 to the beginning of 20th century. We speak about these doors were built at the 18th and end of the 18th and 19th century. So the communities that built these doors are left long ago. They didn't live in the 60s or in the 90s,
Okay. So interesting. Very interesting.
The original people who ordered this house were powerful merchants. Very powerful merchant that left long time ago.
Very interesting.
So these doors of Mosul, they're a way of showing that the people of Mosul, they can build wonderful monuments. And usually a monument is something that is stable and stays somewhere. It is a concept of a monument.
Yeah.
But these doors, they are 4 meters high, and they are carved on both sides.
Okay.
They are carved on both sides, which is very unique. But I want as much of this memory to be engraved in the doors. So these doors are not copies of existing door. They are creation from an architect whose name is Sahar. And Sahar has been working for 6 years trying to preserve the memories of these doors. So when I got the idea of the monument, I was searching what kind of shape I should engrave in it. And she became the mother of the project. So she's the one who shows what to engrave.
Okay, nice.
So basically, like, the the engineer of this door is Anas. He's from Mosul. His family is from Mosul. The architect, the muhandis in the term of an architect, the designer, is also someone from Mosul. And it is people from Mosul who build it. The only foreign person is me, because I'm a conceptual artist. So I am the one who says, this is the concept we're going to do. We're gonna engrave 25 tons of alabaster and make them in the way that they can travel to my country, because
how did you make them in a way that they can travel?
Well, you cannot bring them in a monolith, and that needs to be sought by engineers. The engineer there he was part of the refection of Al Tayyara Church and Al Nouri Mosque in Mosul. So his job is an engineer that worked for UNESCO. So Anas is someone who's deeply qualified into the restoration of old monument. He's part of this new generation of young Iraqis that are ready to work not only in Iraq, but on every project in the world that is about the rehabilitation of broken heritage.
Nice.
So it's his job to think about that. And we have also engineers in France that could have done that. And we even have French engineers working in Mosul who could have done that job, and that I know. But I did not want the project to be French people working in Mosul about the heritage.
Beautiful, very beautiful. I like the message of it and combine it. I hope it will be continued and everything will be
we'll see.
Set.
It's interesting, and it's still developing, as many of my projects in Iraq. So
very nice.
I'm still here for some time.
Very nice.
Waiting for summer.
Cool. So we might have a next episode with you. It's season 2. All right. So bringing the attention back to Baghdad. One of the interesting things that I've read on your portfolio, the work that you did, was the Iraqi gymnasium. Mm-hmm. So I don't think a lot of people, thousands of people pass by through that building. I don't think they understand or know who built it, why he built it, and like the technique. So I think it's like it was a Swiss / French.
And French, yeah. Le Corbusier is one of the most famous worldwide architects.
What is his name?
Le Corbusier.
Okay, that's impossible for me to say, but
Le Corbusier is one of the most famous 20th architects.
So why was the shape like a knife?
It's not a knife.
Like a knife. I mean, like a slide.
Well, the idea is that Le Corbusier was commissioned first at the very end of the King Faisal II reign. He designed a whole sports city for Baghdad to become an Olympic city one day, and he was never paid in his life by the Iraqis. So I feel very close to him, because I'm
even Zuha Hadid.
Yeah,
she's Iraqi architect.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said earlier about the muhandis that most of the architects I know are men, but I know also one woman. But yeah, like no one ever paid Le Corbusier, and 15 years after his death, the government decided to build this gymnasium, which was a very small part of the project. It's in front of Al-Shab Stadium. So, the project was done by his assistant and by another French guy, and they commissioned the Japanese company to build it, and it was built in 2 years. It was 15 years after the death of Le Corbusier that they finally took the plans and built it.
Okay.
And this is actually a treasure. I invite you to visit it, because inside there is like frescoes.
What is frescoes?
Frescoes is inside the concrete. You have like lots of elements of designs that you can find also in Berlin, in Marseille, and in every part of the building of Le Corbusier. That's a link between Le Corbusier, between Baghdad and many other cities in the world. And he's a very famous architect. And most of the Iraqis just see it as just
another gymnasium. I mean, I don't even...
Like, no one knows about that.
I didn't even know until I read your portfolio. So what's the reason for... Do you know the reason for the slide-like design?
For the roof?
Yeah.
I mean, Le Corbusier had a special vision. And I don't exactly know why for this part. But what I can tell you is the gymnasium is a unique piece of the world that they use like airport doors that they can open, and I made them open in one of my video.
Nice.
So it can double. It's a place that can double the size of the audience.
Okay.
I did a lot of work about it because it was also used as a jail by the American force for 2 years.
Yeah, I saw the interview with the guy who literally doesn't even know why he got imprisoned there.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
I mean, I searched on Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
I searched some people to be able to tell me. So it was a lot of work. And for me, it's interesting because this is an interesting shape, and I wanted to speak. I was invited during the last Olympic Games in Paris to make an exhibition in the Le Corbusier Foundation.
Nice.
So this foundation is a museum, and it is the most important place for this architect. And so they commissioned an exhibition to speak about the Baghdad Stadium, because the Baghdad Stadium, the Baghdad Gymnasium, was linked to sport. So it was a way for the foundation to speak about sport during the Olympic Games in Paris. I also invited a team of severely handicapped football players, and I know for 4 years in Baghdad to play there. So we spoke. I mean, I didn't want to speak about this as just an architectural piece. I wanted to explain what is Iraq and what's going on in Baghdad through this architecture.
How did you explain it?
Well, I organized different videos, and one of these videos is called The Prisoner, and it's an interview, a fake interview of a fake prisoner. He's an actor.
It was fake?
Yeah.
I didn't know. I watched the interview. I didn't know it was fake.
No, it's fake. It's fake. He's not the best actor, by the way. But
yeah,
no, it's
makes sense now.
It's a fake interview.
Okay.
It's not a very good film, but it's okay. Sometimes you just... that's not part of my real portfolio as an artist.
Yeah.
It is a work that is there and that explains that sometime what the foreigner, like French people, you have tourists coming in Baghdad just for this gymnasium. You have people, and I met them, who travel the whole world just to visit the Le Corbusier building.
That's
and
crazy.
They will come to Baghdad just to see it.
Wow.
So maybe they will just look at other things also, but what they want to see is this.
What is so special about it for you? The gymnasium.
I mean, he's a very important architect in the history of architecture and modernism.
I read that you made a herbarium of the plants. What is that?
Well, this idea also is that Le Corbusier, when he designed the park. And he said that he wants to build a gymnasium and a stadium and some very interesting piece of architecture which are linked to sport, but he wants to build a garden around it. And that people who have money can buy a ticket to go to see the sport, but that the garden should be accessible to everyone.
Nice.
And so he asked to some people in Baghdad and also in France to make a list of every kind of trees that can be used to build a garden in Baghdad. And when you go to this place, the gymnasium today, there is not a single tree around it, or like then, not an organized garden.
Yeah.
So I thought that this list, they speak about it in some books, and they say that this list of herbs and plants and trees was given to Le Corbusier, but I could never find in the archives. And I searched in the archives in the City of Architecture and at the Foundation of Le Corbusier in Paris, and I spent some time to search for this list, and I could never find it. So the idea is that there was a list that was given to this very famous architect, and on the plans, there is a design of a garden. But this garden was never made, and I could never even find the list. So I decided to make a list of possible species that can be used in Baghdad. So at that time, it was 1 year ago, and I was invited in Al Hula in Saudi Arabia. And I was working in Saudi Arabia, and in Saudi Arabia, they work very hard, very, very hard to try to see how they can adapt landscape to the extreme temperature. And so I had the opportunity to meet botanists, archaeobotanists that are interested in the plants that we see in the ceramics from 3,000 years ago.
Nice.
I had discussion with people whose job is to build and to think about landscape, which is unfortunate, but which not exist in Iraq. It does not. This idea is not there implemented in Iraq.
What did they say about?
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, you meet these specialists and they're like, okay, we have very limited resource. The water is very scarce. So what we need to do is we need like palm trees everywhere, but we need a second row of plants which are in between. These plants can be, in French, we call laurier rose. It's flowers, orange trees. So they will not develop. But so it's 50 degrees. If we plant palm trees and different species like acacia, these plants can tolerate a high temperature. Under them, the temperature will be much more bearable. It will go to 30 degrees, 32 degrees. There we can plant orange tree, we can plant that kind of.
That's a genius idea, I like it.
And then we plant a third row, which is very small plants and herbs and we need to find a good one that will protect the soil from erosion and keep the humidity so we avoid the evaporation.
Yeah.
So these people, they think it was wonderful to see these people. So
I think that's why they built the Jana and Mu'allaqa. Maybe that's the reason, because it was like layered gardens.
Yeah, like this layered, maybe. That's an idea, but that I think also the weather is changing a lot, unfortunately, at least for this region. But it's a never-ending cycle. But so, for example, I was in Mosul. I was in Mosul 3 days ago, and there is a place that they call the forest, and there is plenty of trees, but there is just these trees, and there is nothing in between. And you feel that to really make a place that is harboring life and that would just make the temperature better, you feel that there is something missing. When you go in palm trees here in farms that you call, most of the time it's just like, you have one level, which is a palm tree. Sometimes I saw 2 levels, which is agriculture under. But you don't have these 3 levels of, it's very interesting, irrigation. I learned a lot of things. I'm not a specialist in that.
Yeah,
but I wanted to speak about nature in Iraq also, because the Foundation Le Corbusier is a huge space. It's a museum. And I thought it would be very beautiful to build an herbarium of the plant that can survive in Baghdad and that can make Baghdad a much more livable place.
So Babel, there's an element of like artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I want to understand, how did you link that to artificial intelligence? And also, me and Mouj had a conversation in the car. Just want to understand the Tower of Babel, that they don't know if it was existent or not, right?
The idea is interesting for me because there is a ziggurat which is called the ziggurat of Borsippa. It's in Hilla, and for centuries, people from the West, like for 2 centuries, they saw it and they believed it is the Tower of Babel.
So the Borsippa is the one that is like has some 2 things.
Yeah.
And the
Nothing around. Yeah.
Okay.
So what I did is I collected some documents that show the Borsippa ziggurat while writing that this is the Tower of Babel. Okay. Because, for example, that was deeply inspired by the COVID crisis. For many people in the West, they would open an encyclopedia and they would say, so what is the Tower of Babel? And they would see a drawing of a ziggurat, which is not at all. And we know it's not.
Okay.
But, for people, if it is in a book, it is science. So the proof that the science should not be believed all the time and that we should always think about things, that we can give opinion, we can have different visions and we can discuss, but science shall always be discussed, because for centuries, for at least 150 years, people searched about the Tower of Babel, and they were shown an image of a ziggurat in Iraq that has nothing to do with the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
So I collected these old documents. I bought them online. I acquired these documents that show that science is not exact all the time.
Yeah.
But today we have a site that we believe, which is much closer in Babel, in Hilla, and we believe it's actually the foundation of the Tower of Babel. Why? I don't know. But there is a place now that we know probably it was that place.
Okay.
What I did is I did a video which is called Babel, where I'm filming Boursipa. So it's speaking about a mistake, because the video is not about the Tower of Babel. It should be called Boursipa. It should not be
Okay.
called Babel.
Interesting.
And what I did is I used an AI to translate and to read the Bible in many different languages. And the sound of this video is a mix of all this language.
Nice.
And when you understand what is said into this Bible extract, it says that the humans are pretentious and that they are building this tower because they want to be at the same height of the God. So by filming this very contemplative shot, I want to initiate a thought that this science can be full of mistake, but also that this AI that we are building now, it's like a new Tower of Babel. This AI, I mean, it was a wish of God that we have different language. Before the Tower of Babel, if you respect the Bible, we all had one language, but it's because of this tower and because of the arrogance of humanity that we were divided.
Yeah.
So the idea for me is to say that this AI that I use as a tool, this AI, is actually like a new Tower of Babel. You know, we don't build it like we still build it like in Dubai. You want to make the highest tower. Now Saudi wants to make a 2 kilometers tower. So we still want to make high tower, but
Now we're building it.
We
for
have
AI.
a vision of God that we know it's not directly in the sky. Huh? It's not just up in the clouds, which is very different from the vision of antiquity or representative antiquity, where just God is closer to us than.
I've had an amazing conversation with you, Louis. I wish we can continue. I know we're strict on time, but
we can have another conversation later.
I would love that. Well, thank you so much for coming here,
Thanks
Louis.
to you.
I loved our interview today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Great.